Right. Why don't we get started? Um, good morning. My name is Bill Proctor, and I'm the president of Epicenter Development Group. We're an industrial engineering consulting firm that's headquartered in Cleveland. And I would like to welcome you to our webinar today, where we'll investigate some of the benefits associated with using simulation modeling in the restaurant industry. As part of this, we'll also be reviewing a case study of a recent project that was completed last year. And I would like to ask you all, if you have questions throughout the webinar, if you could just type those into the system, and we'll cover them at the end of the webinar. We have a pretty small group today, so if we can, I'll answer them as we go along. I don't think that this presentation will take the whole 30 minutes, and we've left some time at the end to either go back through some of the things that were covered, if people would like, or to answer any questions that you might have. So once again, thanks for attending today. So just to give you a little bit of a background on myself and our company, as I mentioned, I'm Bill Proctor. I've been doing simulation modeling for about 26 years now, back before Windows was popular. I've worked with over 100 organizations in a variety of industries, food being one of them. And within the food industry, I've worked with Boston Market, most recently Bob Evans Farms, Abbott Nutrition, ConAgra, Hickory Farms, and Kellogg's. Again, I work in a lot of different industries, but a couple different in the restaurant industry. Epicenter Development Group, which is a company that's been around for about 6 years now, it's headquartered in Ohio. We're an industrial engineering consulting firm, so we do all the traditional industrial engineering things. But we've also developed kind of an internal group that is specific to simulation modeling. We do work with a lot of different companies, not only companies like Bob Evans, but also ConAgra, Abbott Nutrition, Case New Holland. So we've kind of developed a little bit of a niche working in simulation modeling, and we use a lot of different packages. We also believe in the idea of the green room philosophy. The green room is about getting all the stakeholders in a room and basically doing design on the fly versus having us go out and come back and go out and come back. And I think simulation fits in very well with that kind of philosophy, where you're basically looking at simulation as a team tool. So let me just start out with a really broad definition of simulation modeling. Most people that sign up for the webinar mention that they really haven't used simulation, may be familiar with it. So essentially what simulation is a representation of a system that's in a computer. So you can imagine a restaurant up here in the top picture. You've got cooks and grills and food and plates and things. And essentially what you're doing is you're taking that system, or all the different systems, and you're turning them into a digital representation, which you see below here. You've basically got a top-down view here with different cooks, and you have food items. And we're going to go over this as our example here in a minute. But what you're trying to do is represent dynamics of a system in a computer model. Of course, that lets you do all kinds of things once you can get that set up. What are some of the general benefits of simulation? Basically, the whole idea of simulation is it allows you to try something on the computer without physically doing it. So it's very good at predicting and quantifying. Could be performance of a new design. Say you were to build a new facility or bringing a new product you've never done before. It allows you to predict how well that new design is going to work in terms of capacity, productivity, balance, flexibility. It also allows you to look at the impact of planned improvements. So if you're going to go out and you're going to initiate some new improvement, maybe it's a new layout design, or maybe you're going to change your process, it allows you to predict how much benefit you're going to get from that planned improvement. And it does it in a very non-disruptive way, because you can try out new improvements without having to physically go out and set it up in a restaurant, for example. Another big advantage, and I've listed it here, is unintended consequences. In many cases, when we improve one area, it can have an unintended consequence in another area. A good example of that might be a layout where you can do a layout and it improves the walking distance for one group of people, but at the same time it can also make the walking distance longer for another group. And in many cases, people, they have a hard time looking at the dynamics of that. They're only looking at where the benefits are, and they don't look at how it's being offset by some of the consequences. Certainly if we can model and we can identify those before we implement things, that can help us with our overall design, how to balance it out to make it best for the overall system. And then finally, as I mentioned before, I kind of see modeling as an excellent team tool, and it allows people not only because it's very visual, but just to develop the model many times requires a group of people getting together, sitting down, and defining exactly how a system is going to work. And then many times we uncover holes in what's been thought through, what hasn't been thought through, or different team members will have different ideas of how the system really should work. And so there's a benefit in really just making a model in the first place. Even if you didn't get anything out of the model, just being able to define it, I think, brings a better shared understanding of how the system's really going to work. What are some of the benefits to restaurants? Some of the specific things that we've seen in the past are it enhances the ability to reduce order to table time. So how long does it take from the time a customer orders something to the time it gets to the table? That's a big thing in terms of customer satisfaction and how warm the food is and turns on tables. It can improve labor productivity. How do we balance out labor so that everybody has a job to do? And this is a big deal during peak periods or times of the day when you have a lot of customers coming in. How do you improve labor productivity? That could also be how do you schedule people or the right types of people to make sure you're covering all the different time periods of the week. You can reduce food waste by getting things out of the kitchen faster, have less waste, things that have to be remade. Improving the kitchen capacity, how much can you get out, how fast can you turn tables would be a good example for a restaurant operation. You can look at how do you reduce labor costs, maybe by changing layouts or the types of skills different people have. You can start to evaluate the costs and benefits of that. And overall, and I hear this a lot, you can basically what you're trying to do is improve customer satisfaction. So how do you reduce your costs? How do you increase your capacity while maintaining customer satisfaction or improving customer satisfaction? What I'd like to do is go over a case study now, and this was for Bob Evans Farms. We did a project for them last year, and Bob Evans is a privately owned company. They have a lot of ways to do improvements now, but a lot of it is around developing mock-ups or a test kitchen where they'll go out and actually try things in a test kitchen. It can be very expensive, and it can take a lot of time to set up and train people and actually try out changes. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to look at how they could use simulation to enhance that process of improving the kitchen design, allow it to go faster, maybe allow them to look at more options quicker. And so they wanted to develop some base models. So we actually created a base model of the Bob Evans kitchen. We populated with historical customer orders during a peak period. So they actually have in their system the ability to track what orders came in, what were those orders comprised of, when did they come in, what time of the day, what day of the week. So we picked a representative time period, and we actually modeled that kitchen during that period of time so that we could do some what-ifs. And then eventually we expanded that model to cover all of their different, they have different model kitchens, different versions, and we expanded that model to cover different layouts. So we created this model, And basically the way I'm not sure how much I like the meat grinder metaphor, but essentially what's happening is we do have inputs. These are things that were fed into the model. So as I mentioned, we had order information that we were able to get out of their system. We have food routings, plate routings, time standards of how long it takes to do different tasks. We have labor schedules, when people come on and off, equipment information, grill sizes. And essentially all that information is fed into the model through spreadsheets, so it's very simple to do. And then we get some output. So we run it for a period of time. It could be a week or a day or just during a peak period. And we can get some statistics on how long it took food to get to the system, what happened with different plates, how busy were the people, the cooks, maybe specific tasks, how long were they walking, and all. So essentially, we're using the model to kind of process all these inputs and outputs and see what the impact is. If we change an input, how will that affect the output? And that's essentially how we run experiments. This is a screenshot. I'm going to show you the actual model here in a second. But this is a screenshot of a kitchen that was modeled for Bob Evans. And you can see we have different types of cooks. We have an egg cook and a meat cook and a mid-grill cook. And you can see food items that are sitting on grills. Those are the little red, basically squares here. And we see some plates. And they have numbers on them to tell you how many items are on that plate. And essentially, we're tracking a number of things when we do a model run. We're tracking the cook utilization, the actual cooks. How utilized are they? How are they spending their time? We can track the equipment utilization. So I know it's hard to see here, but there's a space use percentage. We can track percentage of these grills. We actually took a measure of how big different items are. So every time that item gets put on a griddle or grill, we can track how full that grill is, and we can actually keep it from taking on any more items until some of those items come off. We're tracking order tickets. So when the tickets come in, when did they come in? When did we get them out of the kitchen? Which is important in terms of that order turns we talked about earlier. We're tracking food items. So when we make scrambled eggs, we track when that scrambled egg order went in and when it went out. And this helps to give us some insight as to why it's taking so long for tickets to get out. Maybe certain items take longer to make, and that might be a way for us to improve overall productivity or time by improving the way that one food item is handled. We're tracking the plates themselves, and you can see again these plates. Where are the plates as they go through the system? And then finally, we are tracking cleaning requirements. So we had a thing called a dirtiness percent. Okay, whenever you cook a protein on this grill, after so many of them, you're gonna have to scrape off the grill. So we're keeping track of how often they have to scrape things off. There are a number of other things that we track, but these are kind of the high-level items. I'm going to flip over to the model right now. And this is the actual model. The program that we use is called ProModel, and it's a very graphical representation of a system. And you can see we, again, have defined three types of cooks. There's a meat cook, a mid cook, and an egg cook. And you can see, essentially what you don't see is there's a path network here to allow these cooks to walk around. And we have basically taken the CAD drawing of this area and we've scaled up locations. So we have locations not only for like griddles you can see, but we also have plate areas where things sit. We have storage locations like reach-ins where things have to get pulled. You pull something for the fryer from the reach-in, for example, or the meat griddle. And on the other side here, we have a number of stations for garnishing, more meats, different drawers. So basically what happens is a lot of the stuff in this routing comes in, goes to the meat, then the egg, then maybe the batter griddles. They'll come across the other side where they get a garnish, and then they go out the pass-through at the end here. So you can see that we're tracking a number of things while we model this. We've got, again, plates. We can show different people. We can limit how many people can stand at each station if we want. And actually, we can move these stations around, and we can see the impact of moving them. Again, we basically are connecting up each station to a network where they have to walk to in order to get to it. We're also tracking tickets. Now, we had different ways that we looked at the tickets. Bob Evans is kind of unique. They have two different sides to their kitchen. So we're keeping track of how many tickets, plates, and food items are on each side. And we actually, one of the experiments was to look at the logic for how it balances it out. Because obviously if one side of the kitchen, essentially each side of the kitchen is running the same thing. We send an order to the left or to the right. And right now they do have some, they have some logic for how they send it to one side or the other. So we did play around with how do they do that. Because, for example, you might send something to the left side, a very large order, and you might say, I don't want to send anything else to that side until the next side is filled up as well. So we are tracking each one of those. So in this example, we've got 7 tickets here that are open, 17 plates, and 25 food items. And then down here you see these very small items that tell you how many items are in each one of these locations. In some cases, if it's like a toaster, like here are our microwaves. It tells you how many items are sitting in a toaster or a microwave. That's a specific number. And again, if it's a griddle or something, we're keeping track of the amount of space on that griddle that's being used. And there's a number of things that we're tracking here. But one of the really nice things about this is when we watch it run, it lets us know right away. If we actually show this to a cook, they can see, oh, yeah, that meat guy, why is he over there at that station? What is he doing? Where do we see a lot of walking back and forth? Where do we see a lot of congestion of people? And that allows us to look at the layout and look at, how can we, not only is this model valid, but how can we make improvements to the model? You can see also we can speed the model up. And right now, up here in the right-hand corner of the model, you can see what time it is. This is actually December 23rd of 2011. They're actually feeding real orders into the system. It is it's 10:11 in the morning. It's kind of a peak period. And we can speed the model up very fast if we want, or even turn off the graphics, and we can run these models very, very quickly. I think this model is just going to run into the end of the peak period, and then what will happen is they'll go off shift. Again, if we turn off the graphics, it allows us to run things very fast. So that kind of gives you an idea how this thing runs. Now, while we're running this, we're tracking all the information in some tables. I'm not going to show you the tables because of confidentiality, but we are tracking all the information as far as each order, each food item in a table. And then we can go in and we can do some statistics to tell us, well, how long did it take orders to get through? We're keeping track of utilization of each one of these cooks. We can start looking at that. And then we can change a parameter. We can say, what happens if we make this griddle bigger? And in fact, we found for certain stores it made sense to make certain griddles larger. Maybe they had more pancake sales for that type of area, that geographical area. And so we did, that was part of the deliverable. This was to look at that layout and look at the resources and do you have enough toaster capacity and enough microwave capacity. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the presentation here. So there were a number of benefits that we got from this this project. First of all, we modeled 3 of their different layout versions, and we identified the best layout for best supporting their long-term goals. One of the versions was a new version that they really don't have today. It was a concept. So it allowed us to take the models that we were building for existing layouts and actually apply them to a new concept. We were able to eliminate the cost and time associated with doing some of the physical mock-ups. So there were some things that they were planning on mocking up. It would have been fairly expensive to do those mock-ups. And we were able to show using the model that it probably wasn't worth doing those mock-ups. They weren't going to get the benefits that they expected. Now they're still probably going to do some mock-ups just because, a mock-up is in a restaurant. You actually get to try something. But it allows them to eliminate a lot of the options before they went to that final step. we were able to identify the impact of alternative grill sizes and staffing on different restaurant models. So one of the things that we looked at, for example, was putting in a floater that would help out the people on the grills, because the people on the grills tend to be the more experienced. And we were able to show some of the costs and benefits associated with adding that floater, and also maybe rearranging the staffing. We were able to quantify the benefits associated with customized ticket routing processes on the order-to-table ticket times. And so essentially right now, Bob Evans has a system that estimates how long it should take food items to get through their process. And the whole purpose of that system is allow them to, if they start eggs and bacon and all the different things that go into a ticket, they want them all to finish at the exact same time. They don't want items sitting in the window getting cold. And so what we're able to show them is you could tweak those for different times of the day in different stores, different restaurants, and by doing that, it would help optimize the time it would take to get through, because if you just apply one standard to every single store or every single restaurant all across the United States, you know, there are different populations and demographics going to different restaurants and different times of the day. So we showed them that by customizing some of that information and how the system worked, it would help them to kind of optimize how it worked. So that's one of the things that we're looking at using the model for this year, is going through and trying to do those customizations to say, well, one shoe size doesn't fit all. We need to look at each individual restaurant and customize kind of how the logic works for that particular restaurant. And then finally, and maybe more important than anything else, is that the simulation that we generated, now they have a really nice base model they can use for future menu changes. So if they want to add a new menu item, we can actually model it and say, well, what will be the impact if they add some new item? What will be the impact of scheduling alternatives? What if they decide to change the way their shifts work, or they want to add another person for different restaurants? And they can also look at the impact of sales growth. So we can look at future order sales and say, well, what if you increase your number of orders by 10%? What will that do to your kitchen in terms of capacity, productivity, and staffing? So it's a really nice tool. There was some upfront investment to make this model, but now that we have the model and some of the different versions, I think we're in a really good position, and Bob Evans is in a really good position to use this ongoing as a tool for kind of, you know, predicting how things need to be next year and the year after. And it's a very dynamic tool. We've developed an in-house team of people that are very familiar with the tool now, and so we can sit down with them and show them what's going on, and they know right away. So in conclusion, on my part of the presentation, I would like you to just consider how simulation modeling could help enhance your design and improvement processes. I don't think that simulation eliminates your current improvement process. I mean, everyone's doing lean and everyone's doing, you know, different types of Six Sigma, but I do think it's an enhancement of how you might be doing it today. It allows you to very rapidly look at all options and alternatives, and I think that's the value of it. I'd also like to say consider outside resources to enhance your initial efforts. So if you are interested in simulation modeling, certainly would love to talk with you about being a resource. We do have some clients we work with where we kind of got them started with a base model, and now we help support them on an as-needed basis. They have their own internal folks that do simulation, and we help train them and make sure that they're using the model to the most value that it can provide. So certainly would love to have you contact us if you're interested in learning more about this tool or more about how we might be able to help you. I've just put it down here. The person to call would be Cindy Scott, and her email address is cscott@epicentergroup.com, or you can call her at 216-548-7136, or certainly you could contact me directly as well. So I'm going to open this up to questions right now, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone. All right, so I might have to mute myself. If anyone has a question, please speak up, and we'll we'll go from there. I'll tell you what, if you have a question, raise your hand, and I'll unmute you. Any questions? All right. Well, if nobody, I have a question. Hold on. Go ahead, John.
Hi. I'd like to share this with my associates in Sao Paulo, Brazil. How can we arrange that?
We could certainly set up a go-to meeting separately if you'd like.
Yes.
So just let us know when you'd like to set that up, and I'm sure we can get something going there.
Also, is this presentation available in some format that I can go over it again?
Yes, we have recorded this presentation, so we will be posting it. And if you're interested, we can go ahead and send you a link to access it.
By all means, do that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions before we finish up? And as you heard me tell John, we'll go ahead and we will post this presentation. To people that are interested, to send us an email. We'd be happy to send you a link. And if you would like us to present it to your inside staff, if there's anyone else you might think would be interested, please share that with us. That'd be great. All right. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you.